Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel, guys. This is my weekly Q&A video post here. Compiled all your questions, going to answer them for you right now. I was able to get to all of them again. Thanks for everyone who submitted questions, and be sure to be sure to be looking out for this next week. I usually post the open thread for the videos either Tuesday or Wednesday of every week. So if you want to get some questions in for next week, be sure to do so. Let's get right to it here, guys. Papa 3, I'm sweating ass. How do you feel about the Texans cheering for Matt Schaub when he was injured? Obviously, I don't want to paint all Texans fans with a broad brush, because I'm sure if I was at that stadium, I would know that wasn't everyone cheering for him when he was getting carted off. Obviously, if the people who did cheer for him, it's sort of a Bush League move. I mean, I don't think there's any defending, cheering for someone when he gets injured. And also, I think you're going to see, as you go to the different options the Texans have on their depth chart, I think it'll make you realize maybe that Matt Schaub isn't that bad. Case in point, what TJ Yates came in there and did this week. We'll see what Case Keenum can do in a tough spot at Kansas City this week. I thought even worse than cheering him when he came off the field was fans confronting him and his family at his house. I mean, just some ugly stuff going on down there. You hope the team can kind of rally around it and get better as the season goes on here. Ray the King asked the fantasy question: Kaepernick or Andy Dalton this week? I would go with Dalton. Even though I don't, if you listen to my previews, I don't have Cincinnati winning that game. I think at times they'll be able to move the ball on that Detroit defense. Kaepernick is just too up and down right now. He could have a passing day of 100 yards and they win, or he could have a passing game of 300 yards and they lose. Very inconsistent right now. I would go with Dalton for the time being. 3DG number one fan had two fantasy questions. As a running back, a second running back, Woodhead, Ridley, or Fred Jackson? Again, another tough one. I would go with, if you're in a PPR, I would go with Woodhead. If you're not in a PPR, I would go with Fred Jackson. I only say no to Ridley because the Jets' running defense is really good. And they also had a question about his defense. Should he start the Bengals at the Lions or the Chargers at the Jaguars? I would definitely go with the Chargers. Even though the Bengals defense is obviously a better defense, Detroit is tough at home, especially when they have all their weapons, and they do. They'll be at full strength this weekend. Lalo Mira 2010 asked, "Who do you think? Who I think are some of the other MVP contenders other than Peyton Manning this year?" I think if you want us to talk about other than Peyton Manning, who's clearly at the top with 22 touchdowns and 2 interceptions so far, I think you have to go to Drew Brees next. I think after a guy like Drew Brees, you either go to an Aaron Rodgers or a Justin Houston on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he has 9.5 sacks already this season, and we're not even halfway through the year. I think those are some names. Maybe LaShawn McCoy and Phillip Rivers can get into the mix if their teams start to win more. Those are just some names for you, obviously, other than Peyton Manning. Heyman asked about what I think about the Thursday night games, about them adding possibly another Thursday night game. First of all, I don't know how they would implement this, whether they would have an early game and a late game. It makes sense to me they would do it that way. I doubt they'd put two games up against each other. If they're going to do an early game and a late game, I think that sort of pigeonholes you into who you can have in that late game. You would think it would be West Coast teams. And as a whole, even not knowing how they're going to implement it, I don't like the idea of another Thursday night game. I think it hurts the DirecTV Sunday ticket, right? I mean, if you subscribe to that and now 4 games out of the week, you're not going to be able to get on there. I think it's going to hurt the value of that. But obviously, I mean, the people at the NFL are a lot smarter than me. Obviously, they feel that the Thursday night game wouldn't take away from that Sunday ticket enough to make it not worth it. But again, I don't really like the idea. I like the idea of as many games on Sunday during the day as possible. But we'll see how that unfolds. And Gaming Victory 300 asked me about Case Keenum and the Texans, and if I think he's going to be the future franchise quarterback of the Texans. And all I'll say is this: Case Keenum was an undrafted guy out of Houston from Abilene, so he's sort of a hometown guy down there in Texas. Went to the University of Houston, now plays for the Texans, the whole deal. So I get that a lot of people are going to be behind him, as he becomes a starting quarterback here. And he wasn't drafted. There's obviously reasons for that. He was undersized. He doesn't have an overly strong arm, and he's not very mobile either. But with that said, the guy did set a whole bunch of NCAA passing records. He obviously can throw the football and deliver the football. There's been quarterbacks that have been less touted than him coming out that have ended up to be really good. So let's see the kid play first. To say he's the franchise quarterback yet is definitely a little bit too early. He's got a really tough game here though in the first week. So if anything, I can say to Texans fans is have some patience, because for him to play good this weekend would be a gigantic accomplishment at Kansas City here. And I think he's going to need a good game from Arian Foster to sort of carry him along, especially in this one. Sean Ogo, D86, asked, do I think Rex Ryan is going to be the Jets coach for the next season? Yeah. I as of right now, unless the Jets fully implode, like unless they only win one more game the rest of the year, which I don't expect, I expect Rex to be back. And I know his forte is on the defensive side of the ball, obviously. He's even calling the plays now on the defensive end. I think when you have a very competent offensive coordinator like Marty Mornhinweg, I think it makes Rex look better as a head coach. A lot of those decisions that maybe he had to be involved in with Schottenheimer and with Sperano, he won't have to be involved with now with Mornhinweg, because he sort of runs his own shop, which is, I think, what the Jets need. Keep Mornhinweg if Geno Smith is going to obviously be your future quarterback. And I think that's almost surely going to be the case here. Again, unless Geno Smith falls off a cliff here in his last 9 games or so. But yeah, I expect Rex to be back. I expect Mornhinweg to be back, and Geno Smith as of now. 909 Orbis had a fantasy question. Should he start Josh Freeman or Ben Roethlisberger? This is an interesting one because, while Roethlisberger is obviously the better quarterback and has a lot more continuity with his receivers, he's going up against the Ravens, and neither of these teams tend to have big offensive days when these two teams meet. So I would actually suggest to go with Freeman. Freeman's playing a very poor Giants defense. I know the Giants are at home. I know it's Freeman's first game, but Freeman does have a decent amount of weapons around him. So I would say Josh Freeman over Roethlisberger, only because Roethlisberger has that matchup against the Ravens. Hey Man asked 3 fantasy questions. First of all, Josh Freeman, Brandon Weeden, or Chad Henne? I would actually start Henne in this one. I know you're probably saying, well, why not Josh Freeman, because you just suggested him. I like Henne's matchup against San Diego. First of all, I don't think San Diego's pass defense is great. They're coming off a very emotional win on Monday night on a short week heading east. And look, the Jaguars have put up pretty good passing stats here since Justin Blackmon has been back. So I think when you combine all those, I don't like Weeden at all. And I would take Henne over Josh Freeman this week. And at wide receiver, he said he has Cole Beasley, Aaron Dobson, or Chris Durham, and he needs 2 out of the 3. I would probably say in that scenario, Dobson and Durham, simply because I think they'll get more targets than Cole Beasley will this week. And last, as a tight end, he had Jimmy Graham. He obviously needs a replacement. He asked about Zach Miller, Christian Fourier, Levine Toilolo, or Tim Wright. And look, I know Zach Miller's game already passed, so I don't know if you played him. But out of the other guys, I would probably start Fourier and hope to get a couple touchdowns. It's unfortunate for a lot of Jimmy Graham fantasy owners because the difference between Jimmy Graham and a backup tight end is pretty severe. Cavi DV MVP asked, will Trent Richardson improve from a fantasy football perspective? This year, I'm trending towards probably not. And I only say that because he's less involved in the passing game, and he seems to be having similar success running the ball as of now. And unless that drastically turns around, unless he becomes more active in the passing game, I don't really see how he's going to improve. But the only thing he does have going for him right now is that he is clearly the number 1 back, even though Donald Brown is going to get some touches here and there. But as of right now, I don't see him improving much leaps and bounds over where he is right now. As far as another fantasy question from Annoying Guy 27, who should he start in the flex this week? Lamar Miller, C.J. Spiller, or Keenan Allen? I would say Lamar Miller. Unless you're in a PPR league, and then I would say Keenan Allen. It depends on what kind of league you're in. But if you're in a conventional league, I would say Lamar Miller because he has a very good matchup against a Bills defense. Remember, the Dolphins are coming off a bye. So I like Lamar Miller out of those 3 in a non-PPR. Drew Pansis asked how I think the Steelers will do for the rest of the season. And Drew, I took a quick look at the Steelers' schedule when I was preparing my answer, just thinking about my answer for this question. And I see 5 or 6 more wins at most for them this year. So I think you're looking at 6-10, 7-9 for the Steelers. I think more importantly for the Steelers, they have to develop continuity on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they're a little bit older. They're integrating some younger parts. You can understand why at times they'll struggle. But that offense has some pretty, at the skill positions has some pretty good pieces. But they have to develop some continuity on that offensive line. And I think going into next year, the big question will be if Todd Haley is there or he's not there, and how that offense moves forward and how they address the offensive line in the offseason. Annoying guy had another fantasy question. Should I start the Patriots defense versus the Jets or the Panthers defense versus the Rams? I would probably start the Jets defense versus the Patriots. The Patriots defense versus the Jets, only because Geno Smith has been really prone to the turnover, especially in his last game against the Patriots. I don't think he'll go turnover free in this game. And that Panthers-Rams game is a tough call because both those teams are so inconsistent. It's tough to really predict how either defense will play, although I really, really like that Panthers defense. I think they're a pretty good unit. But out of these two choices, I would take the Patriots. Last question here. Cavi DV MVP asked, Jordy Nelson or Lamar Miller at flex this week. Again, I go back to the PPR part of this because if it's a PPR, I would definitely say Jordy Miller. Other than that, I think I would probably still err on the side of Jordy Miller. Jordy Miller, yeah, right. Jordy Nelson, because Jordy Nelson is with Cobb and James Jones out. He's going to see a lot more targets in this offense. And, while, it might have been a discussion had all the Packers skill position players been playing, I don't think there is this week in particular. I would definitely start at home. I know he's playing against Joe Hayden, but I think the amount of targets he's going to get and the quarterback he has will make him worth the start this week over Lamar Miller. Guys, that's my Q&A for after Week 6, heading into Week 7. Let me know what you guys thought of my answers to these questions. Hit me up in the YouTube comments. Again, guys, I'll be posting a video like this very early next week, so be sure to get your questions in. Thanks for everyone who submitted questions. I really appreciate it. Thanks again, guys, and enjoy Week 7, and I'll be here to recap all the games like normal. Have a great night, guys.